Hey, this is Ihab, and in this video I'm going to show you how to take a drone footage and turn it into an ideal image sequence for photogrammetry purposes. Here is the agenda for the steps. Alright, this is After Effects, and I'm going to go here and hit double click. It's going to import all of these videos. And we're going to go one by one. So this is the first one that I want. So what I want to do is to trim out the beginning and the ending. Because what happened here is that I took these videos in an area where there is no GPS signal, so it was all manual. In other videos, I'm going to demonstrate how to take a perfect circle using the drone programming. But in this case, it's also ideal to take a look at something like this where we can preview what's going on. The practical beginning is somewhere here. So I'm gonna start the work area here. I'm gonna hit B to begin the work area, which means everything here is not going to be rendered. Now, before I export this into frames, I have a little problem. These are going to be way too many frames for the purpose of photogrammetry. The photogrammetry needs kind of projection view, and by that I mean that the software needs to see what's going on here, what the visuals look like, and then after a big change, then we would have a different projection and another and another. But we don't want to have like extremely smooth movement, because that's going to be way too many frames and not necessarily adding additional data, I would say. So for that reason, in my opinion, and with the practice that I have gone through, I go into the composition settings. So I'm gonna avoid the shortcut for now, just to make sure that you can visually see what it is. Composition settings. And then I'm gonna drop it from 30 frames per second. I would easily go into 8 frames per second. And I want to see if that's actually giving me a good preview of what the software is going to be looking for. And the best way to judge is by going frame by frame. And because this is shot with a drone, then the speed, the traveling speed may vary, especially that I was flying it manually. And to go frame by frame, I go page up or page down. If you don't have page up, page down on your computer, or if you want to have a different preference, then you can hit Control, right arrow, or left arrow to go the other way around. And I feel that I can also go lower in the frame rate. So Control K is the shortcut for composition settings. I'm gonna go 2 actually, and let's see how that looks. Kind of stop motion-y. I don't think it would be bad, but when there is like, you'll notice here where like there is a big change, it feels significant, but technically this is not supposed to be, this kind of shift is not supposed to be in the making of the images. So I'm just gonna go with 4 frames per second. So after you make a frame rate reduction, just keep an eye on the ending of your clip, because especially in the case these frames, like, or these clips for instance, they are at, you can see the frame rate here, 29.97 frames per second. So imagine when you drop it all the way to 2 or 4, then the equation is not gonna be the best, technically speaking. Then you're gonna have kind of fractions of frames. So just make sure you go all the way till the end of this layer, hit O, and then hit N. That N is the end of the work area, right? So technically this is gonna be the last frame we're gonna have. It looks kind of weird. It looks like half a frame. If it bothers you like it does for me, I'm just gonna go here and hit N, because it's not gonna be like a big sacrifice to just kind of, plus I'm OCD, so I hate to see some sort of like half a frame. It's kind of weird. So with that said, what I'm gonna do now is importing other videos. I'm gonna show you what potential ways you can go into processing multiple ones together. All right, so to render out another sequence, what I'm going to do here is the same process. And this is the other clip that I want. And in case you didn't know, ideally for photogrammetry, we want to have like a low kind of level circle of photos, and then higher and then higher, and then, you know, so you kind of create a dome around the object. Now what I want to do, I have this clip and this clip, and you can see that there's a bit of a difference in height, so it would be good to combine both of them for photogrammetry. So I can go either by rendering this in After Effects by going to Composition and then Add to Render Queue, and then you don't need to bother about this. You can go to the second one and go into JPEG sequence. You can go to the format options, make sure you have the highest quality here, and then you hit OK, and then OK. I can also go into the other one and do the same thing and add it to the queue, but what I can also do is the following. I can go Control Alt M, or if you want you can go Composition and then go into Add to Adobe Encoder Queue. This way I can have both software rendering two different sequences and they can run simultaneously. You could also render both of them in the Adobe Encoder, and the benefit of that is that when you're rendering in After Effects, the computer would be kind of feeling sick, just the RAMs would be sucked up. But if you render on the Media Encoder, it would be kind of a lot kind of easier, and you can do other things on the computer while it's being rendered here. So it's a lot more gentle on the processing. I guess it doesn't suck as much performance. And I don't feel that this one goes slower anyways. So it might be ideal either way to go here, but what I'm gonna do is to process both of them, like in After Effects and in the Media Encoder, and add to that the following. Once I start the rendering process here, of course I want to go and specify like this is sequence 4. I just want to make sure that this is the 4th one, so I'll just put it in a folder. I've already rendered that sequence before, so I'm just gonna create a new folder here and then hit save. Just make sure it's JPEG and all that. In After Effects, when you are rendering, what really happens is that it's rendering and it's also showing you what's going on. But if you click on caps lock, it would stop showing you what's going on, and you will notice it if you try this on, like, you know, larger scenes or files and whatsoever. You will notice that the estimated rendering process would go down, sometimes significantly, because it takes out RAMs just to show you what's really going on here, and oftentimes we don't really care to see what's going on here. So using this process here, using also the caps lock, you can also go into Adobe Media Encoder and process the rendering there as well. So if you want to do that here, just make sure you go into the JPEG, and it would automatically assume that it's going to be a sequence. And then you can click here to specify where the rendered sequence is going to be. And then finally you click on this play button, and then it would render out. All right, so here is a comparison between a footage that was rendered out as frames without dropping any frames. And you will notice that every couple of images, you would see the difference between one frame and the other. And it takes a lot of frames. Meanwhile, this one where I dropped the frame into 4 frames per second, you will see that the difference you can easily track from every few frames to another. And even if you go like from one frame to another and see like there is a decent difference, then it would work out okay. You'll notice here that it's a bit kind of blurry. So in many cases, you want to be super careful with the drone not to go really fast. But for the most part, I had the images to be sharp enough for the photogrammetry purposes. So if you notice that your sequence has more frames than you need, you can just go back and re-render and dropping the frames lower or higher, however that would work for you. So with that said, I'm just gonna take all those kind of files and just delete them because they're not needed, and they're just kind of gonna make the process of photogrammetry really expensive in terms of time. And in the meantime, the next step from here is to take these images and import them into the photogrammetry software that you would be using, and it should work just fine. I hope this was helpful.